Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to another edition of To The Point Podcast. Hope you guys are doing well. Last night, if you didn't see it yet, I had a roundtable with Seamus Fillmore, Sawyer Hanna, and Casey Ward, where we predicted the 2022 Canadian Olympic men's hockey team. It was a lot of fun. We shared a lot of laughs, a few debates, and I encourage you all to go check that out on Apple, Spotify. You can find it on YouTube, Facebook, wherever you get your podcast. It was a lot of fun, and a lot of good debate. A lot of I'm seeing some comments on the post, which I love to see. So some good healthy debate is never a bad thing. Get involved in the conversation. If there's players that you think that we missed or would make a good addition, feel free to leave us your thoughts. Maybe potential captains. I know that was a topic that for me, it was a simple one where Sidney Crosby would be the captain based on merit and also by default, where he was the captain in 14. He's still playing at a high level, and he's also the golden boy. So nobody's going to take that from him. But share your thoughts, give your opinions on the team. Add some more Toronto Maple Leafs if you want. I know Seamus probably wanted a few more, and they're playing some good hockey right now. So that take probably isn't a bad one, but just check that out. I plan on doing more of them now down the line here. It was a ton of fun. So getting more people on, sharing their thoughts on different topics, might not just be hockey, but football down the line potentially as we get close to the NBA playoffs, some baseball as well, on different maybe like a think tank is something I've been considering on how we can make baseball a better game, better fan experience watching it on TV. A lot of people aren't sitting down to watch 4-hour baseball games anymore. And it seems that's how long an average game is taking in Major League Baseball. A game starts at 2:00 in the afternoon, just in Canada here with the Blue Jays. It's 5:30, 6:00 before the game's done. And a lot of people are checked out, with all the pitching changes, things of that nature. So keep your eyes and ears open for that as we get closer to the MLB season. And just as big topics come around, we'll get to that as well. But on today's show, we're going to talk about a couple games from last night, a couple teams around the NHL that I've really been impressed with. An incredible shutout streak in Tampa Bay. Some NFL news, including J.J. Watt kind of going off the board and signing in Arizona. Touch on that. Also, Alex Smith, a tough story with the Washington football team, letting him go. And we'll start to preview golf, the golf tournament this weekend. This is really the next month might be the best golf stretch in the whole year. There's some good tournaments in July. You got the Rocket Mortgage. You usually have the PGA Championship in July. You got some good tournaments there, but it's tough to beat what's going to happen here in the next couple of weeks with the Arnold Palmer, the Players, and then you got the Masters at the tail end of that, and also a really good tournament in San Antonio before the Masters. So the next couple weekends in golf are must-watch TV, and including after a really good stretch past couple weeks where the best players in the world have been playing at these tournaments, a pretty solid field this weekend at the Arnold Palmer. Some guys are taking the weekend off to prepare for the Players next weekend, but some big names that we'll touch on here in the podcast. And, it's also an opportunity this weekend for players to kind of make a name for themselves and guarantee themselves a spot in major events for years to come. But we're going to start off today and talking about Zdeno Chara's return to Boston last night. And obviously, this is a year that's different because there's no fans. And, he got a quote unquote standing ovation. He got a little tribute. Obviously, both teams, including, Bruce Cassidy and every member of the Bruins team giving him applause, which, he's earned. Last night was his 1,575th NHL game. Zdeno Chara is, Hall of Famer. He's an icon of the sport. I mean, I think that's safe to say. And he's fit in very well in Washington, playing some really good hockey. But, last night, the biggest thing for me with the Washington defeats Boston 2-1 in the gimmick. But the big headline for me, yeah, Washington wins, which is a big deal. Ovechkin has been scoring a lot of goals, which I'll touch on. But watching the Bruins defense last night, Chara's better than these Connor Clifton last night for me, watching that game. I don't know how you move on from Z when you have a guy like Connor Clifton. Connor Clifton is a guy who just loves giving the puck to the other team. He turns the puck over on the tying goal to Lars Eller. The whole game, he gets the puck and he loves just throwing it away. He doesn't make smart plays with it. He gets in his own zone. He's frantic. He's kind of like Travis Dermott, where he's got the puck and he's too excited or something, and he's got to get rid of it, and it's always a bad play. Except he's a worse Travis Dermott, if you ask me. And even Jakub Zaboral, who, yes, okay, he played for the Sea Dogs, and there's kind of this emotional thing when I see around here, if you play for a Maritime team or if you're from the Maritimes, well, it's a great story. You never do anything wrong. You never hear about all the bad stuff. You just read the good headline when they score 2 goals. Well, he didn't have a good game last night. And is he better than Z right now? No, to me, he isn't. Boston's in this period where they need to win this year. And you're relying on the Cliftons, the Zaborals, these younger defensemen that aren't, Jared Tenorti, who they got on waivers from Nashville. He's not better than Z. He's slow like Z, but Zdeno is just better than him. At this point, he's still better than him. And I look at Cam Neely, I look at Don Sweeney, who I have a ton of respect for, and I just say, you're going to tell your captain that you're going to be our 7th, 8th defenseman when you got Connor Clifton rolling out there, and you had to pick up Tenorti because your defense is just not good enough right now. You got him plugging and playing. You're checking guys in and out. Grzelcyk's having to play a ton of minutes. McAvoy, I think, has been fantastic this year for Boston. For me, McAvoy's in the Norris Trophy debate, and that might sound like a big of a stretch. I think he's in the top 5. I think he's played at that high of a level. And just to be honest, I don't think there's been that many great defensemen this year. Seth Jones has tailed off. Werenski hasn't played that great. Hedman looks like Victor Hedman. John Carlson, he's hit or miss. Made a tough play last night, which I'll get to. But, he's been good. But you got Tuukka Rask, and he's really the only reason they got a point last night. He robbed Ovechkin with about 12:30 left in the game. Ovi lifts the puck another half inches in the back of the net. But Rask makes a great save. I'm tough on Tuukka Rask because I think he quit last year. But so far this year, he's played fantastic for the Bruins. He's kept them in every game. But, is Zdeno Chara would he be the catalyst in turning this team around? No, if they would have kept him. But he damn sure would have helped. And, I lived with Leaf fans who didn't appreciate Zdeno Chara as a player. Well, I appreciate him as a player because he's, for every Leaf fan that say, oh, he's too slow. Oh, he beat your ass in every series that he played. I don't care if it goes 7 games. You win 4, they win 3. You win. Chara did that. He's got those, you talk about intangibles that you can't quantify. The guy's a winner. The guy knows how to get it done. Is he going to throw a dirty cross check every now and then? And, John Tavares will look at the ref and say, that was a penalty. Yeah, it's going to happen. Is he going to get beat and have to use his long stick to trip somebody? Yes. But to say Connor Clifton and Tenorti and these guys on their back, Zaboral on their back end, are better than him right now, it doesn't make sense for a team that's in a win now mode where it's not time to just throw in defense and just say, well, we can afford to play this guy this year because we're going to suck. They're not Anaheim, who've lost 8 in a row, where they can say, okay, we're going to play Troy Terry. We're going to play Sam Steele. We're going to play Josh Mahura. We're going to plug and play Trevor Zegras. They're not in that position. They're in the toughest division in hockey. Every point counts. And last night you're playing against Washington. You lose the game. And they really shouldn't have got a point because a goal was disallowed on a video replay, which with about 9 minutes left in the first period. I didn't understand it. Again, stupid fucking video replay. But I just look at it, and with the loss, they're now third in the division. Washington's in first, followed by the Islanders. And then you got Boston, who's got a 2-point lead on Philly and Pittsburgh, but they're right there with them. And, for Boston, I worry about their depth scoring a little bit. Jake DeBrusk has been a guy that's been a no-show this year. I think in the past, he's been a really effective player. I mean, you got Nazem Kadri kicked out of their series against Toronto 2 years ago. He, was a 20, 25 goal scorer, plays with an edge, plays with some bite. He's not afraid to get involved physically. I'm not seeing that this year. He doesn't bring you into the fight. I think you see that he can throw a check and it gets his line mates motivated. Now, they've had to drop Pasternak off the perfection line and promote DeBrusk because he can't produce anything. A lot of Bruins fans, I'm sure David Krejci is a player that you really appreciate. He's been there a long time. He's your highest paid player, and he's not even close to what he used to be. And the sentimentality that people get with players, I somewhat get, but I don't, because I'm not very good at understanding emotion. I'm still trying to figure that out here as I age. I don't get attached to people because I don't have a favorite team. When I watch competition shows, I don't root for anybody. So when somebody goes or if somebody leaves an organization, I don't really, it's out one ear, in one ear, out the other. And with Krejci, that they needed to keep him, and now I read online, we got to re-sign Krejci because he's been here forever. He's not a Zdeno Chara. There's a difference. Zdeno Chara could have left if there was better defensemen to take his spot. That's a big difference. There aren't. You're replacing him with bit pieces when you have Z, who's still playing at an extremely high level. Yes, he's 42. Yes, he has his limitations. Krejci's 34, but he's an old 34. He's had the wear and tear on him. He's played a lot of playoff. He's played over 100 playoff games. Great career. Great Bruin. But I think you can do better at your second line center spot. And when you got your second line center, who's really a third line center making $7 million, who makes more than Marchand, makes more than Patrice, makes more than the superstar David Pasternak, that kind of hurts your organization too. I think Boston's going to be fine. Their Stanley Cup contender status worries me because you're in a tough division and they need to look at adding to their decor. And I thought before the year, maybe the Islanders would tail off. They're a team I didn't have a lot of faith in. I thought the wheels might fall off. It doesn't look that way. Maybe, I thought they could be a team that goes after Nick Leddy. Leddy's a really underrated defenseman. I like the cut of his jib. I think he's got some offensive game. He's got that bite. He can skate really well. He's a winner. I think he's got those intangibles. I can't see the Islanders parting with him now. If Columbus continues to fade, it'll be interesting because they got Savard, who's up at the end of the year. Would they trade Savard? I think Boston would love David Savard. Who wouldn't love David Savard? I think he's a guy, I think you'd have to give a good haul for him because he's a top 4 defenseman for sure. And he logs big minutes, he blocks shots, and he's got those intangibles too. So he could be a guy Boston targets. He's a guy, we'll get to Toronto in a minute. They're a guy Toronto should try to target. I don't know if they could figure that one out financially. And with them having no real great prospects, it's going to be tough to make that trade happen. But again, maybe they do that. But Boston's in a good spot. I mean, they got good goalies. I just look at their back end and I worry. And I look at the bottom of the roster and, it could have went either way last night. Corrali with a bad turnover to cost them the Lars Eller goal. You got Bergeron, or you got Marchand, who found Pasternak on the giveaway by John Carlson with about 17 minutes left in the hockey game. But they lose in a gimmick. I mean, they easily could have went the other way. Like I said, any shootout win is a flawed win to me. But in that division, Washington's in first place, and they've been an inconsistent team. Ovechkin's only got 7 goals. He's kind of stuck in the mud right now. I saw him last night a lot. He's frustrated. He's looking at his stick. He should have scored a few times on Rask, where it just lifts the puck another inch. It's in the net. I don't worry about him because I think he'll find it. And even if he doesn't have a great regular season, if he doesn't win the Rocket Richard, which doesn't look like he will, does that really mean anything? No, because to me, you got to be ready for the playoffs. If he can find his game at the right time, Washington's still a threat to win the cup to me. I mean, you got Vanacek and Samsonov. That's your biggest fear in net, where you got 2 unproven netminders who haven't done anything in this league for you to trust them. However, we did see in Pittsburgh, Matt Murray was an unproven guy. He stepped into the net in 2016. He won a Stanley Cup with the Penguins. So it does happen. Jordan Binnington was a guy earlier in that season. He was playing in Providence, which is the Bruins farm team. And then all of a sudden he's a starting goalie winning the Stanley Cup. You could have made the case that he should have won the Conn Smythe Trophy. So we've seen this happen before. It's not, Anton Hudobin last year, who's a career backup, gets the Stars to the Stanley Cup final, gives them a great chance to win. So I don't hate Washington's chances. Maybe they can pull off a deal for Quick in LA because they're starting to tail off again after a good couple weeks. I think he'll be moved at some point, and I see him going in that division. I think Pittsburgh would love to have him. I think Washington's a team that would definitely kick tires on acquiring him. As crazy as it sounds, Philadelphia is a team that should consider it. Carter Hart Tuesday night again against Pittsburgh without Sidney Crosby. He's letting in some stinkers. His confidence shot. Brian Elliott is playing better. It's kind of like in Montreal where Carey Price, he won against Ottawa Tuesday night, but Jake Allen's been better. Brian Elliott, a.k.a. Moose, has been better than Carter Hart this year. Do you move Elliott, send him to L.A. last year of his deal? Do you get Jonathan Quick? And it might hurt Carter Hart's pride, but Philly's in a win now mode similar to Boston, where you got an aging core, and if you don't win soon, you're not going to win with Couturier and Giroux and these guys. I don't think they will anyway, but just something to consider. I think Quick will be traded, and I think he'll be traded to that East Division in one way or another, to a team in that division. But, Boston, this series, Boston-Washington, they play again on Friday night. You got Pittsburgh and Philly. They met Tuesday. They play tonight, and then they also play Saturday afternoon. So 3-game set in that series. No word yet if Crosby will return tonight after being put on the COVID protocol list. It's kind of changes all the time on how long players have to stay on this list. So we'll see. I don't think he'll play tonight after being put on Tuesday, but who knows with COVID and all these rules, it's hard to follow, and it's never really concrete on what's going to happen. So good win for Washington last night. It was kind of a slower, no shots, team. I was looking at my TV the whole game saying, shoot the puck. Kuznetsov had 3 or 4 point blank opportunities where he's trying to force a pass on a 2-on-1. You don't get a shot out of it. So both teams, the biggest thing for me is just shoot the fucking puck. And, but good matchup. Good for Chara to return. And, I think at the end of this, Boston's going to regret not having him on the roster, but this would make it for a great playoff series. Hopefully we see that down the line in May and June. We got to talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs here. They're a team that's obviously polarizing in for everybody. I think for most fans, you either love or hate the Toronto Maple Leafs. And as you all know, I don't root for a team. I got people in my life who think I hate the Toronto Maple Leafs. Not my parents. I'm not calling them out. But I don't. I don't need to talk about the Toronto Maple Leafs every day because you can go watch Overdrive. You can go watch Tim and Sid or, whatever other show that you need to hear the Toronto Maple Leafs talk about 3 hours a day. that's the show for you if you just want to hear what's great about them, and that's fine. I don't begrudge you if you're a fan for doing that. That's your prerogative. I talk about teams when they deserve it. And I'm going to pump their tires. You know, they play Edmonton for 3 straight games, and Edmonton's coming into this series winning 11 out of 13, playing some really good hockey. You know, McDavid putting on a show, you know, Draisaitl playing great. And they come play Toronto all 3 games in Edmonton, and they're at the height of their powers, so to speak. They're playing at a very high level, full of confidence, and they play Saturday, Monday, and then last night, and they get beat to hell. You know, a combined 13-1 score, including a 6-1 loss last night on home ice. For Toronto, the biggest thing for me, you know, Matthews didn't play in the first 2 matchups, and he didn't get a point last night. The biggest thing for me, other than depth scoring is not number one. For me, it's just defensive play. The Toronto Maple Leafs have been I'm going to say this very clear. They've been a terrible defensive team for over a decade. Over a decade. You know, the past couple of years, they've been promoted as this team that's on the rise. They're going to do some damage in the playoffs. Those are media writers that are fans of the team that just write these articles so that fans actually believe that they're going to go far in the playoffs, when it's ludicrous, because their defensive play has been terrible. And they fire Mike Babcock last year. They go through the stoppage. They come back, play against Columbus. They're not a great defensive team, and they lose. This year, we've seen the flip of the script. They're still not a huge team when it comes to playing playoff hockey, but I'll give them credit. They're back checking. I like the Hyman Engvall line, that third line checking line, where this whole series, they just eliminated time and space. McDavid is such an effective player when he's got space, when he's got room to roam. He had no points in the 3 games. You know, Toronto shut him out with 3 different goaltenders, I might add. You know, you get Campbell, who gets the first shutout. Then he kind of tweaks something. You get Hutchinson, the 3rd-string goaltender, Monday night. And then Freddie returns last night. He couldn't get the shutout, but allows 1 goal in a 6-1 win. It's really impressive what Toronto has done here. Their board plays better. They're not giving up on, you know, they in the past, even Austin Matthews, he would lose a puck and he would just give up, or he'd see that a player has the puck and you wouldn't want to go in the corner, so he'd do the Austin Matthews drive-by. And it was so common. This year he's becoming a 200-foot player. He wasn't a 200-foot player last year because it was the Austin Matthews drive-by show. There'd be 10 a game where little C-cut, car doing a Yui. This year he's motivated. He's inspired. He's playing hockey, not just one end. Not just, okay, Austin Matthews has that great shot that we all love to marvel at. He's playing the game. You play to win the game, and he's doing that night in, night out for Toronto. But, you know, the second biggest factor for me in this series and in general lately, they're getting some depth scoring. First month and change of the season, it was the Matthews and Marner show. Tavares and Nylander were ice fishing with Dustin Byfuglien. Where Tavares scores a goal last night. You know, Bill Nylander had scored in 3 straight prior to last night. You know, Jimmy Vesey scored twice last night. So you know that they're getting some depth scoring because he was, you know, a garden gnome for the first month. Spezza's been a good player all year. I think the way they've treated him, if I was Jason Spezza, I mean, he's clearly loves Toronto. Doesn't want to, you know, move away from his family. I wouldn't want to stay in Toronto if they put me on waivers. I would have said, fuck you, and told him to take a hike. I mean, maybe being in Toronto and playing for that team so special. Again, I don't have emotional attachments, so it doesn't mean anything to me. Playing in Florida would be just as prestigious as playing in Toronto. I don't see a difference between the two. But, you know, he clearly loves it, but he's got a better ego than me because he just took it on the chin and he came back and he gets multiple points last night, including a beautiful pass to Vesey on his second goal early in the second period. You get Kerfoot, who has played better. Again, I don't love Kerfoot as a player. I don't see him as a fit long-term, but they like him, I guess. Hyman's producing. So they really don't have a fault in their game right now. And, I see, Chris Johnson of Sportsnet tweeted out, Toronto is a juggernaut. Yes, I agree to a certain point. Toronto, and this is great for them, they're a juggernaut in this division, and they can get to the conference final. This is only who they're going to play. But this is such the difficult thing, and this is for every team. How good are you? Do we really know? Do we really know how good Boston is? Do we really know how good Vegas is? I'd love to see Toronto play Vegas in a weekend series, one of these, 2-3 gamers that we see all year. I'm getting sick of seeing the same teams play each other over and over. These Toronto-Edmonton matchups have been a dog. If you watch Shark Tank, Kevin O'Leary says, when you got a product that sucks, you take it behind the barn and shoot it. This matchup, that's what I want to do with this one, because it sucks. There hasn't been one good game between Toronto and Edmonton all year. They're a dog. Calgary and Ottawa play again tonight. I'm like, like it. Montreal and Winnipeg, they played twice last. They played twice again this week. Toronto still has to play Winnipeg 9 times. 9 times this year. So, but it's so tough because you can't see the great teams. I think when we did a power rankings, I'll do one on the fly right now. Tampa's still one for me. They're first in their division. Their division's tougher than the Canadian division because half of the Canadian division is no good. Calgary, Ottawa, Vancouver, Montreal to an extent, they're no good. So if I look at Tampa, Carolina, Florida, Chicago, that top 4 is stronger than the Canadian division's top 4. So I think Tampa's had a tougher, they've had to play Carolina 4 times so far, winning 3 out of the 4. I think that's tougher competition than anything Toronto's faced so far. They played Winnipeg once in the second game of the season. They play them next week, I believe, 3 times. So that'll be a strong litmus test because I think Winnipeg's the second best team right now in the Canadian division. And, in the playoffs, I think they can beat Toronto. But then I'd go with Vegas. Vegas continues to roll. Marc-Andre Fleury playing at a very high level. You got just consistent scoring. And I think the best built team, top to bottom, in the NHL right now. Then it gets tougher. I think St. Louis has played really well. I don't know if I put them that high. You might put Toronto 3. I think you can put Washington in there as well, just because that East Division is so difficult. It's constantly in flux. But you probably put Toronto 3 right now, just based on the way they played this year. You'd have to put Toronto 3. No way I put them above Tampa and Vegas. No way in hell. But they've earned that the way they played this year. Then you could put your Washingtons or your St. Louis to round out the top 5. But, they're definitely a Stanley Cup contender. I'm sure odds makers, I don't really look at that because I don't gamble, but I'm sure they're highly up there when it comes to their odds. But what's so difficult, and it's difficult for every team, is not just for Toronto, but I think especially for Toronto, and if you're a Leaf fan, you can feel excited, but you don't know how you're going to do against the really great teams. And the reason I'd have more faith in these Vegas and Tampa Bay, we've seen Vegas and Tampa Bay take it all the way. Vegas got to a conference final last year. Tampa won the cup last year. Toronto's never won a round against, in a normal year where they've had to play the Tampas, the Bostons in their division. So they need to take advantage. They got a 9-point buffer to get, I think it's a 16-point buffer on Montreal for the last playoff spot. So, they're going to cruise into the playoffs here. But what they can't do is fall asleep and just start playing loose and how they've played the past decade. Keep it going. Doesn't mean you got to run up the score every night, but just play consistent hockey where every game there's an expectation and you meet it. Are you going to win every night? No. But it's been a while if you're a Leaf fan and you say, I feel really comfortable with my team going into the third period with a 2-0 lead. Even last year, you go with a 2-0 lead and you're a Leaf fan, you're sitting on the couch. You're not confident you're going to win because your defensive systems, your goaltending, your forwards, we could give this up in a minute and a half. I think right now you feel much more comfortable in saying, we're going to win tonight easily because we're going to play a defensive structure where we're not afraid of what's to come. We'll face it. We'll battle it out. That's fine. So kudos, I got to give my flowers to Toronto. They're eliminating time and space. They're playing playoff-like hockey. Again, I don't think they're still not rugged enough when it comes to playoff hockey. Kerfoot, Dermott. And another thing to consider, the big thing for me is, can you win a cup with defensemen, without a number one defenseman? It'll be interesting. I think the last team to really do it was Pittsburgh in 2017. Chris Letang was out that playoffs. Brian Dumoulin, that was really his coming out party, where to me, he emerged himself as the best Pittsburgh defenseman, and that includes right now with Letang on the roster. But you look at Washington, John Carlson was eating minutes. You look at St. Louis, Pietrangelo, and they had two. I mean, you had Pietrangelo and Parayko. Last year, you got Victor Hedman. You look at Duncan Keith for those years, Drew Doughty, Zdeno Chara in 2011. The list goes on and on of these teams that had number one defensemen. So the Pittsburgh model could work because you do have elite forwards like Pittsburgh does with Matthews and, Marner and, Bill and, Tavares to a certain extent. So that's my one question is, Morgan Rielly's not a number one defenseman. I don't think you can ask him to play 27 minutes a night. He's done that in the past, and it's been a nightmare. Ask him to play 22, 23. You ask Muzzin to play 22, 23, and you even it out that way. I think that's the plan of attack for Toronto. You're not going to get a number one defenseman at the deadline. They don't just grow on trees, and with their cap situation, you'd have to trade a Nylander to get one, and I don't see them parting with him, midway through the year, unless his game just falls off a cliff. But so that's something to watch, just how they deploy their defensemen. And if I'm Sheldon Keefe, if I'm running the defense in Toronto, we're going to play even minutes. We're going to do that. We're not going to put Rielly 27 minutes a night and change our philosophy, because if you do the same thing over and over and expect a different result, then you're insane. And for Toronto, asking Morgan Rielly to be a different defenseman than what he is, you're an idiot. So stick to what you got you to the dance and has gotten you to be first place in the Canadian division right now, and that's defense by committee. Pivoting to the Central Division, really quiet story here in Tampa Bay. Andrei Vasilevskiy has 3 straight shutouts. 3 games in a row with a shutout. You won first start of the week last week in the NHL. Another shutout Tuesday night against Dallas. We talk about Carey Price being the best in the world at his position. That's just not true anymore. Andrei Vasilevskiy is the best goalie in the world. He won a cup last year. He played every minute in the bubble. He was never pulled during the playoffs. McElhinney did not touch the ice in the Tampa net. It was all Vasilevskiy. The guy's won a Vezina. He's won a Stanley Cup. This guy's the real deal. And, 3 straight shutouts, really great numbers, playing on arguably one of the best teams in the NHL. He's definitely emerging in the Vezina discussion. But for me, he's a sleep Hart Trophy candidate. If he could get a shutout streak going, 3 straight, that's a lot of minutes. If he could get a shutout, 7-8 shutouts in 56 games, that's hard to overlook, especially if Tampa finishes first in that division. I think you got to look at it. Matthews has been banged up. Maybe he'll start scoring points again. McDavid has gotten a point in 3 games. Draisaitl with 1 in the past 3 games. Patrick Kane to me is the leader in the clubhouse right now for MVP with what he's done with the Chicago Blackhawks. Huberdeau would be right there. But why not Andrei Vasilevskiy? it's rare that a goalie ever wins it. But, we did see Devontae Smith win the Heisman Trophy being a wide receiver, which rarely ever happens. First one since Desmond Howard when he was playing for Michigan. Why not? I think goalies should get more recognition. They're the most important position in the NHL. And he's playing at that high of a level. If he can get some shutouts going, if he plays really great all year, I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility that you see Vasilevsky at least get nominated for the award. I think it's pretty good odds that if Toronto finishes first in the Canadian division by a good margin, you'll see Matthews nominated. It wouldn't shock me if you see Matthews and Marner nominated, which would be funny to me. I'll save that for another day. But I think adding both of them would be a disservice to not have Vasilevsky if he continues the way he's going. I mean, you got Tampa playing great. And another just quiet story. Like I mentioned, Chicago, they played Tampa 3 times this week. Tonight, Saturday afternoon, tonight, tomorrow, Sunday afternoon. That's a big series for Chicago. Obviously, they're way less talented than Tampa Bay. They got 8 rookies in their lineup right now playing with Patrick Kane. I'm interested to see how they play against them. Can they compete? They got a lead over Columbus. I don't think that's set. Obviously, Kevin Lankinen's got little NHL experience in net. You do have Columbus with Torts who want to turn that around. Laine in a contract here motivated to get Columbus to the playoffs. This is a great litmus test for Tampa Bay and Chicago, just to see how Chicago can play with the defending Stanley Cup champions, with the elite team in their division. They've been competitive against Carolina. They beat Florida. They've beaten Columbus routinely. So this is their big test. They play Tampa 3 times in a row, and I believe they play Florida twice. Their next 5, they're playing all the Florida teams, and they're top notch right now. So interesting to see how Chicago does in this 5-game little trip playing against the Florida teams, and if they can stay competitive and keep the games close and see if they can get some points against these top teams. And I mentioned Carolina. They're tied for first in the Central, and you got to credit their organization because they made trades that have worked. Vincent Trocheck, who they got for Walmart, which is basically nothing, salary dump from Florida. Trocheck was a really good player there. He's got 12 goals. That's 4th in the NHL right now in goals. They got Aho's got 8 goals, but is a really elite player. Niederreiter has 9. They got, Nedeljkovic, who's their 3rd-string goalie, who got a shutout a couple weeks ago. James Reimer's playing some really good hockey without Mrazek. They're an elite team. They played Florida the other night, should have lost the game, yet they battle. They tie the game with 1:20 left. Trocheck scores, and then they win the game in overtime. They find ways to get points, and that's the most impressive thing about Carolina to me. They have Svechnikov, they got Aho, who are both emerging superstars, but they do it by committee. And I give them a ton of credit. Ron Brendamore, since being the head coach there, has had a team that's has strong work ethic, not afraid to go in the corners, not afraid to do what it takes to win. And they've kind of adopted his mentality when he was a player. And, it's really impressive to see what Carolina has built there and what they continue to do against, elite teams such as Tampa Bay and Florida. So they're in Nashville tonight, and we'll see what they can do down the stretch here. Maybe make a push at Tampa Bay to finish first in the Central. Who knows? But yeah, a lot of good hockey. A good weekend. It's going to be hockey day in America on Sunday. But yeah, I'll be back tomorrow morning to talk about some games tonight. You got Toronto, Vancouver tonight. You got Philly, Pittsburgh again, like I said. You got the Tampa, Chicago matchup. You got the Sabres who are playing the Islanders. Sabres are kind of on life support right now. Even rumors that Jack Eichel could be on his way out. So a lot happening in the NHL. Maybe we see some more action, trade deadline rumors. I'll keep you guys all up to date. But It's fascinating night in, night out. Am I getting a little bit tired of the same matchups? Yes, but for me, it's not just about watching the Canadian division. Last night, I watched a lot more of the Boston-Washington game than the Toronto one. I watched St. Louis Anaheim last night for the first two periods. Anaheim's lost 8 in a row, but they got a lot of good young players that I like to watch. Maxime Comtois is a guy I root for, who's, a Team Canada for the World Junior team, the captain. And he's got a lot to love. He leads Anaheim in points this year. A quiet story for him. Zegras is a lot of fun to watch. So in St. Louis, Jordan Kyrou playing at a very high level. So a lot happening around the NHL, and I'll keep you guys all up to date on it each and every day here and To The Point. Also this week, the NFL offseason's going full circle. Teams have until Tuesday to use the franchise tag on players they want to keep. So the franchise tag, for people that don't know, is when you put a franchise tag on a player, the NFL picks a number for a salary for a certain player, a certain position group when you get the franchise tag. You can get franchise tagged up to 3 times before the player becomes a free agent. So in the case of, the Dallas Cowboys, they franchise tagged Dak Prescott last year. He made about $28 million. If they franchise tag him again this year, he'll make about 38. And then that would jump up to 51 next year if he was franchise tagged for a third time without having a long-term deal. I suspect that he'll be franchise tagged by Tuesday. I don't see the two sides coming to a long-term deal by then. They couldn't all of last offseason, and it seems like they're still in a holding pattern in Dallas where, Prescott wants to make $40 to $45 million. He doesn't want to fall behind Mahomes too much. And, seeing he broke his ankle this year, they lose him. Andy Dalton comes in, they miss the playoffs. So he does have a lot of leverage. But Jerry Jones, he's a tough negotiator, and he's kind of not willing to budge on salary. But he's a player likely franchise tag. Tampa Bay's got some decisions to make, maybe a franchise tagging Shaq Barrett, maybe Chris Godwin, who's a receiver they really like. Some other name, maybe Bud Dupree in Pittsburgh, who was franchise tagged last year, but he's coming off a torn ACL. Maybe that they let him walk, and they're also over the salary cap. So it's going to be tough for them to do that. But a lot happening there. I'll keep you guys updated. But this week, in early February, J.J. Watt requested his release from the Houston Texans. They gave that to him. It was an amicable breakup. He was drafted first overall. He won 3 Defensive Player of the Years. He's an icon in Houston. He's done a lot when they had the floods and obviously the hurricane. He donated a lot of money, a lot of time and effort into rebuilding that city. He'll be loved there forever, and he's going to be a Hall of Famer as well. So he did great things for the city of Houston. But they part amicably, and he's a free agent. He doesn't have to wait until March 17th when free agency opens. Because he was outright cut, he can sign with any team because he doesn't have a contract. So it was rumored maybe he'd go to Green Bay. He's from Wisconsin. He played at University of Wisconsin. There's also rumors he'd go to Pittsburgh. His 2 brothers, Derek Watt, who's a fullback, plays there. TJ Watt, obviously his brother, the other defensive end, who's an elite player. He could play alongside him. Decides not to go to Pittsburgh. There was also rumors about Buffalo. Buffalo seemed like a really good location to me. They were a game away from the Super Bowl. They could use some pass rush help. And again, they're really close to winning a Super Bowl, a few pieces away. There's a few rumors maybe about Tampa Bay or Kansas City if he was chasing a ring. But he surprised everybody. And J.J. Watt signed with the Arizona Cardinals. This is really off the board. For 2 years, $32 million with $23 million guaranteed at signing. It's a lot of money for what he's doing right now. He's a future Hall of Famer. But last year he had 5.5 sacks. That's not an elite player anymore. He's had 4 major back surgeries. He's had a lot of wear and tear in that body. And for Arizona, I get it. They're going to pair him with Chandler Jones. Chandler Jones is also coming off an injury-plagued season. So I think they're hoping Chandler Jones will get double teamed. That'll leave J.J. Watt with time to be getting single coverage. He can blow up that offensive line. He can get some more sacks, get some more quarterback pressures, be effective. But for me, J.J. Watt chose Arizona for one reason, and that's money. Green Bay has a better chance of winning next year than Arizona. I'd pick Aaron Rodgers over Kyler Murray if I'm just looking at quarterbacks. Buffalo, I'd pick Josh Allen over Kyler Murray, and I think Buffalo, they were really close this year. They look like a team that can challenge for a long time. I would not have gone to Pittsburgh. Pittsburgh is a team that's in decline. They got Big Ben, who is heading into his last season. It looks like he's going to be back, but they're not a team that's close to winning. They tailed off last year, so I see him not going there as a smart decision. But Arizona, yes. Do they have a good team? Yes. Kyler Murray, first overall pick. He has a lot of talent for sure. But they got Budda Baker, who's probably my favorite player in the NFL. He's so fun to watch. Him and Jamal Adams, when it comes to safeties and how they play the game, they're so fun to watch. But Arizona's in the top, you could argue the toughest division in football. You got San Francisco. San Francisco last year, injury-plagued season, so they didn't have a great year. But 2 years ago, they're in the Super Bowl. They're about 2 first downs away from winning it. Jimmy Garoppolo would be seen a lot different. Do they bring him back? That's still yet to be seen. But they still have a really good roster there with Kittle and, just a strong team. And you got Seattle. Yes, Russell Wilson's kind of up in the air. I don't think he'll be traded. They won the division last year. They're still a formidable team that on paper, I still think they're better than Arizona. Then you have the Rams. The Rams have Aaron Donald, 3-time Defensive Player of the Year, in his prime. They got Jalen Ramsey, one of the best cover corners in football. They traded for Matthew Stafford from the Lions, who's an upgrade. You got a great offensive line, and you got a Rams team who looks like they're primed to make a real run at potentially getting to the Super Bowl representing the NFC. That's a tough division. To win that division, even to make the playoffs, because you got 6 division games. Those are all tough division games to win any of them. And for J.J. Watt, I don't blame him for taking the money. I don't blame any athlete for taking the money. But, in saying when you go there saying, well, I gave myself the best opportunity to win a Super Bowl, that's a lie. It's not the truth. J.J. Watt I think he went there because you could argue lifestyle. I could think of worse places to live than Arizona. Again, he lived in Houston. That's not bad when it comes to weather. Go to Arizona. I suspect J.J. Watt plays golf. It's hard to maybe Florida, but other than Florida, when it comes to the United States, I don't think there's a better place to be to play golf year-round than Arizona. And maybe that's, his wife plays soccer professionally in Chicago. So not exactly close to her. So this is kind of but I look at the money. He wanted one last payday. And I can appreciate him not chasing the ring, so to speak, going to Kansas City, going to Tampa Bay. We've seen that from players where they're at the tail end of their career. They sign with a team that they feel is a piece away from winning it. Play for nothing. But we'll see what happens with J.J. Watt. But for Arizona, him and Chandler Jones both coming off injury-plagued seasons. J.J. Watt hasn't played 16 games in a long time. I just worry he could be injured week 1 and then it's over. But he makes a decision. He goes to Arizona. Still a lot of building blocks left when it comes to free agents. The number 1 free agent to me is Shaq Barrett. I think he should have won the MVP in the Super Bowl. Well, the whole defense should have won it, but he was a catalyst, getting over 30 sacks in the past 2 seasons for Tampa Bay. I think he's going to get a boatload of money from somebody. I don't see him going back to Tampa Bay unless they really open up some cap space for him. So he's a guy to look out for. I mentioned Godwin for Tampa as well. He's a guy that he's going to get interest. He's going to get some looks. Who knows what's available to him? You got Richard Sherman in San Francisco. Does he want to keep playing? Is he going to keep playing? Who knows? Larry Fitzgerald, again, he's kind of a veteran, but does he go back to Arizona to play with J.J. Watt? I think it's earlier, 3-4 years ago, he was talking about retirement when Arizona was a tire fire. Maybe he comes back again because he says, well, we got Kyler. We got a decent team. Maybe we can make a run at making the playoffs. And for Larry, that might be enough to bring him back. But we'll get more into the weeds of free agency as we go along here, but it's going to be fascinating. There's still a lot of quarterback drama to figure out. What do the Bears do at quarterback? What do the Niners do with Jimmy Garoppolo? Still a lot to be decided, but a lot of stuff there. So we go from J.J. Watt getting money, and then there's this tough story. The Washington football team decided to cut Alex Smith on Monday. I get it. I see it at two different spots here. Washington cuts Alex Smith because they really didn't need him anymore. He came back from a life-threatening thing, a tough rehab, and he goes 5-1 playing for the Washington football team. Incredible, his journey. And again, I'll say, if you haven't watched the E60 on ESPN about Alex Smith and what he went through, I really encourage that you do it. It's truly inspiring. I look at it the same way as I do The Last Dance. If you really want to be motivated to go do something, watch The Last Dance about Michael Jordan, because you get amped just watching him do his thing. Alex Smith, you just say you appreciate life and what being able to walk and just the little things, seeing him and his fight and drive to get back on the football field. But they cut him. They got Heineke, they got Kyle Allen. He had a $24 million cap hit, so they get rid of it. But he wants to keep playing. Of course he does. It's Alex Smith. He's saying, I'm not retiring. I still got game. And I don't think he's going to get a starting job somewhere. I don't know if he can do it for 16 games anymore with the leg and with this injury history. But I think there's a couple different spots where he can be a great backup, and I'll go through them. Jacksonville's got the number 1 overall pick. He played. Alex Smith played for Urban Meyer in college, so he's got a good relationship with him. If Jacksonville picks Trevor Lawrence number 1 overall, which I suspect they will, why not have a great veteran backup to lead your quarterback of the future into the league, learn how to do it the right way? And Alex Smith has done that. He's done that for Colin Kaepernick. He's done that for Patrick Mahomes without complaint. And I think he'd be a great guy for Lawrence just to bounce off of. And I think you'd have instant respect for your backup quarterback, saying, this guy's a warrior. He's going to not try to fuck with me, give me wrong pass routes, stuff like that. He wants me to succeed. He's a great leader. I see that as a good fit. Another team for me is the Chargers. Justin Herbert, he's heading into his second year. Last year's backup was Tyrod Taylor. It was kind of a contentious thing where Taylor was the starter beginning of the year. The doctors screwed up trying to give him an injection. He got a collapsed lung, missed half the season, and lost his starting job forever in LA. Alex Smith would be a great backup, similar to Lawrence. He can just keep Herbert going. Herbert looks like a stud. Smith can just help him be a good guiding, calm voice in that locker room. And we're talking about Jacksonville and LA for Alex Smith. Pretty damn good climates, good life, and you get to play at the new SoFi Stadium, which is a good place to be as well. There's a couple other places. Chicago, for me, who knows what they do at quarterback? Maybe they draft a rookie. And maybe they draft Mac Jones out of Alabama, and Mac Jones isn't ready. Maybe Alex Smith is their opening day starter. If he goes to a Chicago, if he goes to a team, to a lesser team, then I think it tells us he wants to be a starter. If he goes to a good team with a set starter, but a younger guy that he can nurture, it'll tell us a lot about what he wants to do and how he sees his career moving forward. But just a couple teams to think about. I think the Chargers will be the best fit for me. I love them in LA. being Herbert's kind of calming voice. I think that, Herbert's looks like a stud, and I think he would be a great fit with Herbert moving forward. But still a lot more to come in the NFL. Like I said, next week we got the franchise tag deadline, free agency, the draft in late April. So a lot still to be talked about here and a lot to be uncovered. And, the NFL never stops. There could be a trade or a release today. Teams, the salary caps being, readjusted. Teams, Drew Brees. Is Drew Brees going to retire? I thought it would have happened by now. Free agency's in a week and change, 2 weeks and change. What's he waiting for? I still think he's going to retire, but why hasn't he? There's nothing going on right now. There's no free agency. There's no franchise tag. Why isn't there been an announcement that Drew Brees is going to hang them up? He posted a workout with a trainer. I think that's more, trolling fans than anything. But is he going to hang them up? I mean, he reduced his salary with New Orleans to $1 million. I don't see him playing for that amount of money. But what's happening? What's New Orleans going to do? They got Jameis Winston, who's going to be a free agent. They got Taysom Hill under contract. They'd love to acquire Russell Wilson. Can they make that happen? So a lot. I mean, this NFL offseason's already been crazy with the quarterback movement, but I think it'll continue to be really interesting, and we'll continue to follow it all here to the point. This weekend, starting today, I mentioned golf. Obviously, Tiger Woods still on the shelf. He will be for an extended period of time. But this weekend starts a great start to a month of golf. And it's the Arnold Palmer Invitational down in Florida. Some great courses. And they got the Players Championship next weekend as well. And they play a number of tournaments in Florida this month before they head to Augusta National in early April. But, we've seen great fields the past couple of weeks. We're going to see some good players again. We got Victor Hovland playing this weekend at the Arnold Palmer, Jordan Spieth, Bryson DeChambeau, Hideki Matsuyama. You got Rory McIlroy. Players are going to play a lot in the next couple of weeks because they want to gear up for the Masters. I think you're seeing Rory McIlroy really start to find his game. He missed a few key putts this past weekend, but he was right at the top of the leaderboard for most of it. Obviously, Victor Hovland finished T2. Spieth has played some really consistent golf this season. He's going to be looking to finally get a win on his resume. Matsuyama's a former major champion. He's always involved, a really solid golfer. The interesting one for me is DeChambeau. He's had a terrible start to the year. Missed the cut at two of his past three events. He can't keep his driver. He can't keep it on the fairway. He's hitting it into the rough, and he's having to scramble, not doing it very effectively, not getting a lot of sand saves, which is what we see from the high-end players. And just listening, Jerry Foltz is really the guy I love listening to. Him and Steve Sands on the Golf Channel. There's what he's done in his body transformation last year during the quarantine. Adding about 40 pounds of muscle, eating all that he does, and if you look at his swing, how violent it is, and the effect that it's going to have on his back, I don't think it's a coincidence that he's just starting to tail off because he's probably exhausted. He's got to be hurting. And if you just watch him swing the golf, just watch him swing, it's so violent. It looks like he's trying to take a guy's head off. And a lot of these courses are tough. We saw him when he won at the US Open. It was because he could get out of the rough effectively. We haven't seen that this year. For DeChambeau, he's got to work on his iron game. He's got to get that second shot improved, kind of like DeChambeau, sort of like Colin Morikawa. Sorry, Morikawa, I think, has got the best second shot in golf. His iron game is impeccable. DeChambeau, when it doesn't go on the fairway perfect down the middle, he gets flustered, and we see him react the second that it's not right on the fairway. And I think half of it for him is just mental. Can he overcome that hurdle and say, okay, I screwed up this tee shot, but I can recover? And it'll be interesting to see him going in. I think Hovland is obviously, he'd be a favorite. I think Rory is probably probably the betting favorite going in, but you have Max Homa's in the field. He won 2 weeks ago. Paul Casey's a guy that can find his game and normally make it an event. But, a name that kind of, this guy's been one of the best golfers in the Korn Ferry Tour, which is basically the equivalent of the golf AHL for a couple of years, is Will Zalatoris. He's a pro golfer now. He's playing a lot of weekends at these events. I'll be interested to see how high he finishes in the leaderboard. I think he can make a name for himself pretty easily here. If you win one of these events, you're going to play in the majors. That's how big it is for some of these younger guys. If you could win this event, you're guaranteed to play in the majors, to play potentially in the FedEx Cup. So it opens a lot of doors for you to play in these major events and stay on the main tour. And that's what you want to do as a golfer. A guy who won one of these events in the past and, been on tour for a while is Ricky Fowler. Ricky Fowler hasn't won an event in over 5 years. And he's on the last year of your eligibility to play at majors. So a guy like Ricky Fowler, who can't find a way to win, he's kind of be scrambling right now because he misses a lot of cuts. He's a guy who gets a lot of pub in the golf world as this great guy. He gets promoted a lot, but he doesn't win anything. So interesting to see what he can do. But, Will Zalatoris is a guy for me. I think he's a really good golfer, really strong short game. He could maybe do some damage this weekend just as a kind of a dark horse. But, I mentioned Hovland, Spieth, DeChambeau. It probably won't be one of them that wins it. We see that a lot where we might see a win from Paul Casey. Paul Casey's a veteran. He seems to always be involved close in these tournaments. He usually plays his best golf in the bigger events. So, but a strong field. And again, I just think the sport of golf is in such a good place right now. And every event you want to watch because it's a tight leaderboard. You head into the weekend, it's always close and it keeps you engaged for the entire time. Before we wrap today, I thought I'd just point out this from the NBA last night. We see some, triple double has really become a big thing where, rebounds, assists, and points, you get a triple double, and it's really become watered down where, Russell Westbrook averaged a triple double for a season. He won the MVP. We've seen LeBron do it. And players are doing it more and more frequently now. James Harden is another guy who gets a lot of triple doubles. Well, last night, TJ McConnell, for the backup point guard for the Indiana Pacers, got a triple double off the bench, but he got about 16 points, 13 assists, but 10 steals to get the triple double. That is so much more impressive of a triple double to me because it's playing defense, getting 10 steals, including 9 in a half. Incredible stuff from TJ McConnell. They were down 20 in the game. They bounced back to beat Cleveland 115-112. So really impressive outing from Indiana to come back. But just shout out TJ McConnell. The guy's about 5'8". He's a little white guard. And he's a junkyard dog, playing out there, playing tough. Gets a triple-double. 10 steals is incredible. So good on him. He'll never have that stat line again. But good on TJ McConnell. I thought I'd point that out today. Just you like to see those good stories where, he's a guy that's a reserve, doesn't play a ton of minutes, but he gets an opportunity, played over 34 minutes last night and made the most of it. And was a factor where Indiana really couldn't take him off the floor because he was doing, so many good things. That's going to do it for today's podcast. We'll be back tomorrow. We'll talk about the games tonight in the NHL, update you on the first round of the Arnold Palmer, get into some NBAs. We head into the All-Star weekend. And as we get closer to the weekend as well, we got UFC 259 this weekend with 3 different title fights on the card, a stacked lineup for the UFC. They've also made some cuts recently, which I'll get into. But, a lot happening in the world of sports. I'll be all over it. But I'll be back. Like I said, I'll be back tomorrow. But until then, have a great Thursday. Stay safe, everyone, and we'll talk soon.